The Fallout modding community has become a toxic cesspit over the years, and as a creator it can be pretty difficult to continue making mods for it. That was the original premise of this video, but I may as well be shouting into the void, as most people's response to that would be just to tell me to stop if I find it so bad. So I thought maybe instead we should turn this general idea into something useful and positive. Hopefully this video helps any future mod creators who might be going through a similar crisis of motivation, help them push past it and learn how to completely ignore this section of the community. Let's start with who I am. I'm not the largest mod creator on the Nexus. My online username is not synonymous with Fallout mods like a SomeGuy2000 or a Millennia. I'd still like to think I've been around the block a few times though. I'm mostly known as a quest mod creator. I made two fairly popular ones, The Deterrent and Race to the Bottom. I've also made two companion mods, both variations of a character called Thomas Pinkerton. You might recognise the voice if you've ever played that mod. So the first one came out in like 2013, so I've been doing it for like 10 years against my better judgment. So I can give perspective on how the community was back then and compare it to how it is now. Back in 2013, I was 18 years old and made my first quest mod after seeing YouTube creator Al Chestbreach playing through a bunch of them. I thought the idea of creating your own quests was the coolest thing ever, and being a computer science student, it made the scripting work fairly easy and intuitive. The end product, however, was less than stellar, with terrible voice acting done by myself, with audio equipment of terrible quality. Pinkerton was overpowered and spawned in Goodsprings, which completely destroyed the natural player progression arc of the game. The story was a random mishmash of inside references to my friend group that absolutely no one else would get. I also introduced several bugs to the game where vanilla followers could no longer be fired, as that dialogue was permanently removed. So yeah, that kind of sucks. Worst of all, there was a dependence on another popular quest mod called Deserter's Fortress. I accidentally opened that in the GEC and tied it forever to my mod. So yeah, overall this thing was a big piece of shit. I'm not afraid to admit that. But do you want to know what's weird? See, all the reception I got to that mod was very positive. People were understanding that I wasn't being paid for that work, that the content wasn't going to be professional quality. They knew they were playing the video game equivalent of a movie made in someone's back garden. Everyone was nice in the mod's comments. YouTube playthroughs all had nice comments on it saying this mod was pretty cool. I think the worst complaint I got at the time was it doesn't make sense that he's got a Scottish accent. That was one of the complaints that I'll define later as useless feedback, made by what I'd call a nitpicky fucking idiot. But we'll get to that later. So yeah, that was like the only pointless bit of feedback I really got. All the other criticisms were really helpful and helped me improve as a mod author. Everything was constructive. Little bits of advice were given to me to help future projects. There was just a general vibe in the community of everyone wanting to help each other and improve like the quality of each other's work, no matter how bad or silly they were. So what's it like now compared to back then? Let us fast forward to 2022. At this time I'm releasing Race to the Bottom, my first mod in 10 years, with the last one being The Deterrent in 2013 again. Which if you've not played Race to the Bottom, I highly recommend you do. I'm very proud of it and I forever will be. It features studio quality voice acting, all done by professionals. It's a well balanced mod structured around player choice with narrative themes, inspired heavily by the main game. Basically anything you can think of, your character can do it. By all intents and purposes, it is almost indistinguishable from vanilla content. Now for the weird part, which I was not prepared for, like at all. The criticism I got for the project was way harsher and had a nasty streak to it. It felt like I was returning to a completely different modding community, one filled with malice where people wanted to knock mods down, along with their offers. There was a general attitude of, how do I phrase this? So this is kind of like what the person would say. This author doesn't understand New Vegas, they're way too dumb to get it. They'd be saying things like that. Which, when you think about it, it's really dumb to think that, because while New Vegas has good and well developed characters and a very cohesive setting that makes sense when you take it as a whole, it is not a very thematically complex game. Thematically, I'd sum it up as the following. It's saying imperialism is bad and people need to let go of history and the past and try to create something new, something better. So yeah, I don't get where this idea that New Vegas is this thematically complex masterpiece that you need to have 4,000 IQ to understand. Just don't get it at all. So what was the turning point for the community? What caused this sense of elitism? How did we get here? I think it would be disingenuous for me to say the fallout of the Frontier was the only reason for this shifting attitude of the community. Hell, there's always been an elitist section of the fanbase, with sites like No Mutants Allowed, and places like that, taking time to gatekeep Fallout 3 fans whenever they could. However, that sort of section did not come to the modding community until Fallout 4 disappointed long-term RPG fans, and hype for the Frontier started to build in its place. The Frontier was supposed to be a Fallout 4 killer. Something that was supposed to show Bethesda what a real Fallout game was supposed to be. Basically, the mod came out and was nothing like what fans expected. The main NCR storyline was linear and more a first-person shooter than Fallout 4 ever was. There was no cohesive setting like other Fallout games. Instead, it had fanfiction level writing, which is what a mod is at the end of the day, fanfiction. Since the Frontier is not the main topic of this video, we won't be discussing the strange fetish content that was put in the mod in detail. That is a topic of its own, so all I'll say is that I'm in agreement with most of the community and that content should never have made it to production. So in total, the mod was a gigantic disappointment, and that's what it should have stayed as. A disappointing mod for some, and a little bit of fun for others. This wasn't the case though. It all started with one of the mod authors stating that siding with the Enclave and the Frontier wasn't possible. This author then said they wouldn't be allowing players to live out a fascist fantasy in the mod's Discord. They then kicked a hornet's nest by comparing the Enclave to American Republicans, which then led to online scumbags doxing several of the developers. Not all is rosy on the developer's side, however, as one of them turned out to post paedophilic art content on message boards in the past. This, combined with some suspect content in the mod, turned this situation into an even bigger mess, with many calling all the developers paedophiles. All content in the mod was dismissed as terrible despite the project containing work from hundreds of passionate developers, completely unaware of who they were working with. For the record, fuck paedophiles, can't believe that's something I need to even say, and fuck the fetish content, but I will stand by the Frontier in saying that there are some genuinely great quests and well designed set pieces in there made by talented creators. So with all that backstory about the Frontier out of the way, let's look back around to the topic at hand. After the Frontier, there was a schism in the community. Creators were either bad Fallout modders who didn't understand the franchise and made terrible fanfiction, as they put it, or they were good Fallout modders who are better than those bad ones. Which one of those am I? It depends on who you ask. You can no longer make a Fallout mod without mention of the Frontier, and scrutiny of every mod project is stricter than ever. What was once a fun community where you shared fun little stories has turned into a purity test. Are you a real Fallout fan? Do you know the lore? My overall message is for mod authors to ignore these cunts, because that is what they are, cunts, with a capital C. They have no intention of helping you improve your work. They only want to knock you down, so they feel like they are the only ones that really get Fallout. They want to sit on their high horse and feel smart. They will nitpick and nitpick until the cows come home. The things they criticise probably won't even be true. And if they actually paid the slightest bit of attention, they would have noticed that you already addressed the thing that they're trying to say. Now, I want to make clear that you shouldn't ignore all feedback. I just want you to ignore useless feedback, the kind that exists just to kick you when you're down. There's a lot of good feedback out there, and you can learn a lot by reading it and interpreting it. A good motto to live by in development is to understand that the customer doesn't always understand what they want. They aren't very good at articulating what they want, so feedback can often hide things under the surface of their comment. In order to help mod authors, I will give examples of bad feedback first. These are comments that you should generally ignore. Okay, this first comment has 9 upvotes, which shows how easy and popular it is to shit on something without elaborating. I've blanked out the names on these comments because I don't like singling people out. Here's a general comment which is basically saying that I'm criticising the NCR in the mod's story, but not doing so in an interesting way. Do you see the problem here? He's not telling me why it's not interesting to him, what bored him, or how it could be improved. There is literally nothing to go on here. So I made the mistake of engaging with the comment, and I asked for more information. Here's what he comes back with. He is complaining about a character starting a war in a famous anti-war video game franchise being portrayed in a negative light. Is it possible that war is bad? He then complains about a nitpicky logistics detail, completely misunderstanding a simple plot point about local farmers who won't like their middleman being killed. Now, when it generally comes to a scenario like this where your player doesn't understand a simple plot detail, you should look at your work and check if you made the line of dialogue or exposition too subtle where it's easy to miss. Now let's look at the lines of dialogue in my mod to see if this is the case.
The cattle market to monopolize and prove that the rich and powerful hold too much sway over the fate of the Republic. One rule for the rich, another for the poor. Gunderson is a fine example of this. He's infamous for intimidating competition within his industry. A complete brute of a man.
Ah look, it's fine. It's literally spelled out clear as day. So look at this. This comment's useless. Throw it in the bin where it belongs. Move on. No point reading it. Now let's look at a comment of a different variety. This one I like to call obsession with canon compared to thematic significance. You'll genuinely get people who'd be happy with a Fallout game that said nukes were good actually, just as long as the Brotherhood of Steel were the right set of power armour. So basically, fuck them, make your story about whatever the hell you want, don't let war constrain you too much. If the nerds don't like it, hell with them. So all in all for this section about useless feedback, basically ignore anything that says your writing is bad if it doesn't elaborate. It's an easy thing to say with no evidence, and it makes those internet critics feel smart despite their comment itself being badly written. Secondly, ignore war nerds who think canon trumps all, who pay attention to the tiniest little inconsistency in the plot. They literally treat media like they're doing a Cinema Sins episode, so ignore them. Now, let's get on to useful feedback that you can actually learn something from. It is important not to bin all feedback, as you'll never improve as a writer. So, the gist of this comment you're seeing on screen now is that the player was disappointed by the events of the plot being anticlimactic, compared to what was foreshadowed earlier in the mod. This is a genuine criticism I can look at and see where they're coming from. They were expecting something more grand based on some dialogue I wrote, which ultimately led them to being disappointed. I've since learned not to set the player up for disappointment by foreshadowing events that do not happen. Here is a second comment where the user says that the writing could be more snappy and concise. A trend I've noticed in my work ever since this comment is that some of my characters tend to ramble. It's something I can actively take and try to improve on. So in conclusion, as a mod offer, don't let the assholes get you down. Try and extract useful feedback where you can from YouTube videos, your mod page, and ignore nasty and useless comments. Remember who you're making mods for. If you ever have people that love your work, remember that someone out there will hate it too. The human brain tends to hold on to negative comments more than the positive ones. Always remember that someone somewhere enjoyed your work. Another thing to remember is that the work you're creating is special to you. Who cares if Hillbilly John doesn't like your work? Are you proud of what you made? That's what matters. Finally, a message to the rest of the community who don't make mods. Please understand that all of these mod offers spend hundreds of hours bringing stories to you. They've put their heart and soul into their work and don't need you to shit on them. Offer constructive feedback and be nice if you want to criticise them. Learn how to criticise media properly. I'm not asking you to tongue the mod offer's arsehole, but please just don't be a dick. If you're looking for better examples of good feedback than the ones I gave in this video, I recommend Ramble Lime's channel. They are very good at helping mod offers improve with their criticism. Also, for the love of God, please stop talking about the Frontier when it comes to Fallout mods. How are you not fed up of talking about it? Stop making everything about the Frontier. Maybe when Starfield comes out, I'll escape this toxic community forever. Here's hoping, eh?